I still remember the sound of the rain that night. Heavy, angry drops slamming against the window as if the sky itself knew what I was about to discover. You can't forget a sound like that. It's the kind that stays in your bones, the soundtrack of a memory that won't let you sleep. If you've ever trusted someone so much you'd bet your life on them, and they turned out to be the one holding the knife, then maybe you'll understand what I'm about to say. My name's Mark Holloway, 41 years old, born and raised in Cincinnati, Ohio. I was never the kind of man who looked for trouble. I built a simple life, steady job at a logistics company, a house in the suburbs, a dog named Rex, and a wife I believed was my blessing from heaven. Her name was Laura, 36. Beautiful in that effortless way that doesn't need makeup to make heads turn. We'd been married 12 years. 12 years of building something I thought would last until we both grew gray and wrinkled together on that porch we talked about. I used to come home late, most nights, after long shifts managing shipments and paperwork that never seemed to end. Laura always said she understood. She'd wait up for me with dinner warm in the oven and that smile that made me forget the world outside. Or at least, she used to. About a year ago, things began to shift. So slowly at first, I didn't even notice. The little things, you know? She stopped texting me during the day, stopped asking how work was. When I got home, she wasn't at the door anymore. The hugs felt shorter. The kisses, routine. I told myself she was just tired, maybe bored. After all, I wasn't the most exciting man alive. I worked, I paid the bills, I mowed the lawn on Saturdays, grilled steaks on Sundays, the kind of man who thinks loyalty is enough to keep love alive. I was wrong. There's a certain gut feeling that comes when something in your world goes off balance. You don't have proof, but you feel it, like static in the air before a storm. It started one night when I came home early, around 6 p.m., surprising even herself. Laura wasn't there. Her car was gone. No note, no call. I sat in the kitchen, waiting. 10 minutes. 30. An hour. Then she walked in, looking startled, wearing a black dress I hadn't seen before. "Hey," she said, her voice light but shaky. "Didn't expect you home so soon." "Where were you?" "Oh, just out with Madison," she said, naming her friend, the one she always used as an excuse. "She's going through a breakup. I was keeping her company." I looked at her for a long second. I wanted to believe her. God, I wanted to. But something about the way she avoided eye contact made my stomach turn. That was the first lie, the first drop of poison that would eventually rot everything we'd built. A week later, I noticed she'd changed her passcode. She'd never done that before. When I asked why, she laughed. "Work emails, company policy." I nodded, but the truth is, from that day on, I couldn't stop thinking about it. I started noticing patterns. Late-night texts she'd hide by flipping her phone face down. Showers at odd hours. The scent of cologne on her that wasn't mine. At first, I thought I was losing it, imagining things because I was insecure. But that's the thing about lies. They're like cracks in glass. You can ignore them at first, but once you see them, you can't unsee them. Then came the night that confirmed everything. It was a Thursday. I remember because I was supposed to fly out for a 2-day work trip, but a client canceled last minute, and I didn't tell Laura. I wanted to surprise her, maybe rekindle something. I drove home quietly, parked down the street so she wouldn't see the headlights. The house was dark, except for a soft, flickering glow coming from the living room. I smiled to myself, thinking maybe she'd lit candles, until I heard laughter. A man's laughter. My heart froze. Every instinct screamed for me to run, but my legs moved on their own. I crept to the window and looked inside. And there she was, my wife, sitting on our couch, her hands tangled in someone's hair, kissing her like the world outside didn't exist. The man was Evan Mitchell, my best friend, the one I watched football with every Sunday, the one who stood next to me as my best man at our wedding. I can't explain what that moment feels like. It's not just pain, it's a kind of silence, a void that eats you alive from the inside. I wanted to kick the door open, but I couldn't. I just stood there, staring through the window at the life I thought I had, watching it burn down in front of me. After a few minutes, I walked back to my car, drove around the block, and parked. I sat there for hours, gripping the steering wheel, listening to the rain start to fall. My chest hurt so bad I thought I was having a heart attack. When she finally came to bed that night, I pretended to be asleep. She smelled of his cologne, that mix of citrus and wood that I used to like on him. Now it made me sick. I barely slept. By morning, something inside me had changed. The part that trusted her was dead. But the part that wanted revenge, that part was very much alive.
The next few days, I played along, smiled, kissed her cheek, acted normal. Inside, I was burning. I started collecting evidence, photos, messages, anything. I set up a small camera in the living room and another by the front porch light. I told myself it was for security. And in a way, it was. Security for my sanity. 2 weeks later, I had everything I needed. Videos, screenshots, calls, all of it. Proof that my wife and my best friend were meeting while I was at work. Proof that my marriage was a lie. But I didn't confront her. Not yet. No, I had a different idea. You see, confronting a liar rarely gives you peace. They deny, cry, twist the truth until you start doubting your own mind. No, I wanted something cleaner, something that would make them feel what I felt. I began by pretending everything was fine. I invited Evan over a few times, like old times. Beer, barbecue, football. Watching them act normal in front of me was the hardest part. Every smile from her, every glance from him, it was all part of their little play. But I watched. I memorized. And then, slowly, I set the stage. Laura had been begging me to take a weekend getaway. "We need to reconnect," she said, smiling. Oh, the irony. So I told her I'd booked a cabin up north in Gatlinburg, Tennessee, our favorite spot from years ago. I even showed her fake booking details. She was thrilled. She started planning outfits, calling it our fresh start. I almost laughed. The day before our trip, I told her I'd be working late, but really, I went to Evan's place. He wasn't expecting me. When he opened the door, the color drained from his face. "Mark, hey, what's up, man?" "Just wanted to drop something off," I said, smiling too easily. "Laura forgot this at home." He looked nervous, sweating. His voice cracked when he said, "Oh, sure, yeah, thanks." Behind him, I saw a wine glass on the table, 2 plates, a candle still burning low. My hand tightened around the doorframe, but I didn't say a word. I left. The next morning, Laura kissed me goodbye like nothing was wrong. She thought I was leaving early for work before our trip. What she didn't know was that I'd called my boss the night before and taken time off. I waited. That evening, I parked my car a few houses down from Evan's. Lights were on, curtains half closed. Through the small gap, I saw movement. 2 silhouettes. I took my phone, pressed record, and zoomed in. There she was again, my wife, her arms around him, laughing, kissing. I recorded everything, every disgusting, heart-shattering second. It wasn't anger that I felt anymore. It was clarity, cold and sharp, like steel. The next morning, I sent copies of the video to both of them. No words, no threats, just the truth. And then, while the world around them began to collapse, I started executing the rest of my plan. I froze our joint account, changed the locks, called my lawyer, handed him the evidence. Within a week, divorce papers were filed. Laura came home that evening, banging on the door, crying, "Mark, please, we can talk about this." But I didn't open. I just said, through the closed door, "You made your choice, Laura. Now live with it." I could hear her sobbing outside for almost an hour. When she left, I poured myself a drink and watched the sun set behind the house across the street. For the first time in months, I felt free. But freedom didn't taste as sweet as I thought. Nights were still long, the silence in the house was loud. My anger wasn't gone, it was just waiting, patient, whispering that justice wasn't complete yet. Because Evan, he still had his life intact. His job, his reputation, his comfort. I couldn't let that slide. I didn't plan to ruin Evan overnight. That would have been too easy, too merciful. Men like him, they need time to feel the walls closing in, to realize what they've lost and how it's never coming back. The first thing I did was simple. I knew his company. He worked at a mid-sized construction firm in town, handled procurement and logistics. I'd been there once or twice for casual visits, company parties, barbecues. He liked to brag about how much they trusted him, how his boss thought of him as family. So I sent an anonymous email to his supervisor. Attached were screenshots, him and my wife exchanging explicit messages during office hours. I made sure to include timestamps that matched his work schedule. It wasn't hard to make it look like company time misuse. The firm had a zero-tolerance policy for personal misconduct on the clock. 3 days later, Evan called me. "Mark, man, please, can we talk?" I said nothing. Just listened to his voice crack on the other end. "They fired me. My boss got that email. Someone sent them everything. I know it was you. Please, man, I hung up. I didn't owe him a single word. It should have felt good. I found out Laura had moved into a small apartment downtown. She'd lost a lot. Friends, stability, reputation. Word spreads fast in neighborhoods like ours. People whispered, especially the ones who used to envy her perfect life. The pity in their eyes, the gossip, it all became her shadow. A part of me thought maybe that was enough punishment, but another part remembered every lie, every time I kissed her goodnight while she was thinking of him, and I couldn't let that go. About 2 months later, I ran into her at the grocery store. She looked smaller, thinner, tired. When she saw me, her eyes filled with tears immediately. "Mark, please," she said, voice trembling. "Can we talk for a minute?" I hesitated, then nodded. We sat in the parking lot, in my truck, where it all used to feel safe and familiar. She started crying before she could even speak. "I'm sorry," she said. I don't even know what happened. It was stupid, and I hate myself for it. I lost everything because of that mistake." "Was it a mistake?" I asked quietly. "Or was it what you wanted all along?" She shook her head. "No, I loved you. I still do." I laughed, a hollow, bitter sound. "You don't destroy people you love, Laura." She reached for my hand, but I pulled away. For a moment there was silence, just the hum of cars passing by. Then she whispered, "Please, can we try again? I'm not asking for forgiveness, just to talk. I can't sleep knowing you hate me." I didn't answer right away. I just looked at her. Really looked. This woman I once thought was my world. The one whose laughter used to fill the house. She looked like a stranger wearing the face of someone I used to know. Finally, I said, "You'll be fine, Laura. You'll move on. Just not with me."
I left her there, sitting in the parking lot with her face in her hands. That image stayed with me for weeks. I tried to shake it off, but guilt has a way of finding cracks in your armor. Then, about a month later, I got a letter in the mail from the Army. They wanted to reinstate me for a short-term training program for returning veterans, a consulting position. I'd served for 6 years when I was younger, before the company job. The timing couldn't have been more ironic. I took it immediately. I needed distance from the house, the town, the ghosts. The base was in Fort Carson, Colorado. Different world. Mountains, open air, early mornings. It reminded me what peace used to feel like before betrayal became my oxygen. The men there, they didn't know my story. I was just another vet with some scars and a quiet stare. But one night, after a few beers, one of them said, "You've got that look, brother, the kind that says you've seen hell and shook its hand." I smiled. Something like that. For a while, I thought I could leave it all behind. The pain, the anger, the need to even the score. But the past has claws. It doesn't let go just because you change your zip code. One night, while scrolling through social media, I saw Evan's profile. He'd moved to Nashville, gotten a new job, a girlfriend, smiling like nothing had happened. Like the man who betrayed his best friend could just hit reset and start fresh. That lit something inside me again.
So I made a decision. A bad one, maybe, but I've never claimed to be a saint. Over the next few weeks, I learned everything about his new life. The company he worked for, the woman he was dating, Samantha, a single mom who seemed genuinely kind. I could have reached out to warn her, to tell her who she was really with, but that wasn't the plan. Instead, I created a new profile online. Nothing suspicious, just an ordinary guy. And I started talking to Samantha. Friendly at first, then flirty. It wasn't hard. She was sweet, open, and a little lonely. I didn't do it to fall for her. I did it to destroy him from the inside, the way he'd done to me. But the funny thing about revenge is that sometimes you cross lines you didn't mean to. I actually started liking her. A few weeks in, she invited me to meet in person. I declined, said I was out of town. Instead, I sent her screenshots of Evan's past messages with Laura, proof of what he'd done. I told her I was a friend who thought she deserved to know. That same night, she confronted him. And just like that, his new life fell apart again. He called me, this time screaming, "You sick bastard! You ruined me again!" I listened, calmly. "You ruined yourself, Evan. I just turned on the lights so you could see it." He didn't have a comeback, just heavy breathing. Then he said something I'll never forget. "You think this makes you better than me?" "No," I said. "It just makes us even." He hung up and never heard from me again. Months passed. The Army contract ended and I came back to Ohio. The house was different, emptier, quieter, but it felt like mine again. I rebuilt slowly, went fishing, fixed the porch, took Rex on long walks. Some nights I'd sit outside watching the sunset, thinking about all that had happened. People always say time heals everything. That's a lie. Time doesn't heal. It just teaches you how to live with the scars. One evening I got a knock on the door. It was Laura. She looked different, softer somehow. She said she just wanted to see me, to apologize one last time. "I'm not here to ask for anything," she said. "I just wanted to say I was wrong about everything. You didn't deserve what I did to you." I looked at her for a long moment. "No," I said quietly. "I didn't." She nodded. "I heard about Evan, what you did. I can't say he didn't deserve it, but I hope, for your sake, you let it go now." Then she smiled sadly, turned and walked away.
That night I couldn't sleep. Her words echoed in my mind. Let it go now. And maybe, finally, I did. I stopped checking their profiles, stopped replaying the memories. I started living again, not for revenge, not for closure, but for peace. I even met someone new, Emily, a nurse I met at a veterans support event. She had this calmness about her, the kind that makes you forget why you built walls in the first place. I didn't tell her everything at first, but one night over coffee, I did. Every detail. When I finished, she just took my hand and said, "You went through hell, but you came back." I looked at her, realizing maybe she was right. Maybe surviving was its own kind of victory. Now when I think of Laura and Evan, I don't feel rage anymore, just a dull ache, like an old scar that throbs when it rains. They taught me something I wish I'd never had to learn. Love without respect is just slow poison. So if you've ever been betrayed, if someone you trusted ripped your world apart, don't rush to get even. Let them dig their own graves. Life has a funny way of balancing things out, and when it does, don't watch with anger. Watch with peace. Because by then, you'll realize they didn't destroy you. They just revealed who you were meant to become.